Hi everyone, and welcome to Transfiguration course 103. This video has to do with the one cable mitts. So we're going to look at, we need 100 grams and 100 yards worsted weight yarn, size 9 needles or 5.5 millimeters, double pointed, or you can do a 32-inch cable and do magic loop. I will show you how to do that. I will be doing that myself. We're going to need 2 stitch markers later, which you can just use a contrasting yarn or paper clips or a bottle cap or the tabs. They'll be fine. A cable needle. So if you have, like I have, for when I use my double pointed needles, I normally have 5. So that double point can also be a cable needle, or you can use a cable needle. It's asking for waste yarn and a yarn needle. Alright, so let's get started with this gauge. The gauge is in the rib pattern. Unstretched 8 stitches is 1 inch. So for the rib pattern, it's knit 2, purl 2, rib. Simple enough. So what I suggest doing is starting with the needles that you are going to be using to make your mitts with, because sometimes needles might have a slightly different gauge. So I'm starting with my yarn here. We're also going to cast on more than 8 stitches. We're casting on more than 8 stitches because to measure the swatch, you want more than 8 stitches because the edges can be a little funky sometimes. Alright, so I'm going to do a long tail cast on here. I have about a foot of yarn in my tail. The tail goes over the thumb, and the part that goes to the ball of the yarn goes over my forefinger. We're going to be casting on 16 stitches. So it's going to be a simple, pull this a little tighter. I'm going to go down through the loop. Oops, there we go. I'm going to be grabbing, oops, I lost that. I'll be going down. This makes a little hole through the hole, around this yarn on my forefinger, and pull it back through the hole and pull it tight. And that puts 2 stitches on. We're going to keep going until there's 16. So again, up through the hole, around, pull tight. Up through the hole, around, pull tight. Now there's different cast on methods, and you just do whatever method you prefer. This is just how I do it. Okay, I'm at 8 now. Alright. So I have, and I'm going to double check that I have 16. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14, 16. Alright, I have my 16 stitches. And you're going to be doing the opposite every other row for the rib pattern. So you want to purl where there's purls and knit where there's knits. And I'm going to take the tail yarn that we don't want to knit with and put that behind, and make sure that I have the ball yarn in my hand. So here you're going to just knit 2, and bring the yarn in front and purl 2. Switch the yarn front to back, knit 2, switch the yarn forward, purl 2. Switch the yarn to back, knit 2. Switch the yarn front, purl 2. Front to back, knit 2. Yarn forward, purl 2. So this actually works out nicely, where when you flip this, you're going to be starting with knits. So this is going to be an easy knit 2, purl 2 back and forth. I would suggest doing about, let's do 8 rows. So let's work on 8 rows of knit 2, purl 2. And you're going to want to bind off. I will come back and show you how to bind. Alright, now I'm going to bind off in with the knitting and purling. So I'm going to knit 2 and pass this over. Bring this to the front. I'm going to purl 1, pass this stitch over, and purl a second one, and pass this stitch over. And you're going to continue like this until the end. So knit 1, pass the stitch over, knit 2, pass the stitch over, go to the front, purl 1, pass the stitch over, purl the second one. So it's interesting that this pattern only has the gauge for the width, but not the height. We'll address that at a later date. Okay. I normally don't cast off like that, but I plan on ripping this gauge out and reusing it. Alright, so we know that this is 2, 4, 6, 8. So we want to measure from this purl here to the end here. And normally you do this on a flat surface. Unfortunately, I can't. So my gauge is actually a bit bigger than an inch. So from here, I'm trying to measure. So that edge, I want to measure from that edge and then go to this edge. My gauge is a little bit off, not by much. I wouldn't worry about, you know, being a quarter an inch off, especially for fingerless gloves. Now, if you were, you know, say half an inch, so you have less stitches per inch, you'd want to use a bigger needle. But let me lay this down and measure this to make sure. Yeah, it's still off by that quarter of an inch. Well, not really. Actually, it's less than that. So it's slightly over an inch laying down, so it's there. So my gauge is close to being what it's supposed to be, but not too bad. So once your gauge is done and measured, you're all set.